Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. So, today we'll be starting off with another session of Project J. This would be the seventh session, and I hope you all can hear me well. And let me introduce myself. My name is Mohammed Mashhoor, and I'm from India. So, without any delay, let's get started. All right. So, let me just share my screen. I hope you guys can see my screen. Just a moment while the PPT loads. Okay, guys. So we'll start today's session. So today we will be discussing some new topics. Basically, these topics are you guys because you have already used this in the previous sessions. So today the first topic that we'll be discussing about would be the access control or the access specifier, and then we'll be discussing about the class level scope, then the packages, and then finally we'll be talking about the Java API. All right. So first of all, we will start by reviewing the previous session. So in the previous session, we basically were discussing about the recap of object-oriented programming, whatever we have learned so far in these 6 sessions. Okay, so we will review that in a moment. So in this particular slide, as you all can see, um, in the previous session you learned about the static keyword. So I hope you all know what the use of static keyword really is. So here, as you can see, this is a class called counter. It has field and a method also. The fields are my count and another static variable called our count. So the method increment is used to increment the value of my count and our count by one. Okay, so we look into that. So the our count is actually a static variable, as you can see in here. It is actually class counter. So what basically is static variable? Static variable means that the objects of that particular class will be having that particular variable as a common. So if you alter the values in that particular variable, it would affect every object in that particular class. All right. So as you can see, our count is the static variable. So we basically call it as class. Okay, class counter because it is a counter variable, right? Next up, we are declaring a object for this particular class named count of one, and it has a variable my count. Okay. Now we are declaring another variable called counter2 or another object for the counter class named counter2. All right. So as you can see, another object counter is created, and it has a variable called my count. But still, the our count is common for both of these. All right. So here in the first statement, the increment method of counter1 object is called. And what is the increment method? It increments the value of my count and our count by one. So here, as you can see, the value of my count is incremented by one. At the very same time, our count is also incremented by one. Okay, next up, we are calling the increment method again for the counter one variable. Okay, so again, the my count value of counter one is incremented by one and it becomes two. And also our count increments by one and it becomes two. And next up, we are calling the increment method, but this time we are calling for the object counter two. So as you can see, the my count variable is incremented for counter two. Okay, but you can see that the our count variable is also incremented and it becomes three because it is the static variable. So I hope you guys understood what really is static variable or what really is the use of static keywords. Okay. Now we will move on to today's topic. Okay. And as you all know, as I previously told you, we will be talking about access control, class scope, packages, and Java API. API means application programming interface. All right. Before starting off today's topics, you, if you guys are having any kind of doubts or any kind of questions, you can type in the chat box. Our team would be assisting you at any time. And also after the session, even if you guys are having any kind of troubles or difficulties, you guys can message us in the WhatsApp group, or else you can DM us through WhatsApp. All right. So let's get started. So first up, we will be talking about access control. Basically, access control is also called as access specifiers or access modifiers. All right. So what really is access control? Access controls are some keywords which are used on fields or methods to restrict the access to those particular variables and classes. I hope you guys understood with that. We already discussed regarding that in the previous sessions. We already introduced these topics in the previous sessions, but we will be describing or we will be explaining these topics today. All right. So as you can see, we have a class here called credit card, and in this there are two variables, card number and expenses, and there is a method which adds some amount to this expense variable. All right. And we have another method called get card number, and it basically checks the password and all. So here we have another class called malicious. Okay. And in this we basically are having a method called malicious method which alter the value in the expense, which is actually a variable declared in this particular class. So that's where we think about the access control keywords. All right. So here we can access the variable declared in another class through this particular class. So it's kind of like not safe, right? The variables or the information isn't safe. That's where we use the way what do I say, the access specifiers. So most importantly, there are two access specifiers, public and private, but mainly there are four. Default is there and protected is there, and our tutors will give you more information regarding default and protected during the tutorial sessions. Now we will look on to public and private. All right. So public basically means the meaning of that word, which means others. I mean, everyone can use it. Every class can use it. There's no restriction on the usage of that particular class or variable. Private means we can only access that particular variable or method in the classes which we have declared them. All right. I hope you guys understood. Private means we can only access those particular field or method in the classes that we have declared them on. Okay, simple as it. In simple words, that's what we need to understand. All right. So as I told you, public, private applies to any field or method. Field means variables. I hope you understood with that. Okay. So as you guys as I previously told you in the previous program, these variables can be accessed in any other classes, right? So we are using the access specifier to restrict the access to these variables. So we are giving the private keyword before these variables to restrict the use of these variables in other classes. Also, as you can see, we are also giving access specifiers for these two methods also, which is public actually. So by making these variables private, we can only access these variables in this particular class only, and we can't access it in other classes. So now comes the most important question. What is the importance of access control, or why are we using access control? So in the previous in the first program, as I told you, we are able to alter the expenses in this credit card situation in another class. So it's not actually safe, as I told you in before. So that's why access control can protect private information. I mean, kind of, they can protect our information. Okay. Then they can clarify how others should use your class, which basically means we can restrict the extent up to which others can use the classes that we have programmed. All right. And also it keeps implementation separate from interface. Okay. I mean, it basically restrict the access to the variables that we have used in the classes. Okay. So next is the class level scope. Before moving on, I hope you are clear with access control, private and public keyword and all. Okay. Now we will move on to class scope. So as you all know, in the second session, I guess you guys learned about methods, right? So what basically is method? We create a method and we do some functioning in that particular method. So the variables declared within the methods have some scope, right? The methods can are the scope of the methods declared in the methods are having scope within these two curly braces. These two curly braces, which means in this particular method the sum variable is having the scope in between these two curly braces. Okay. Similarly, class has also have class level scope. We'll be discussing it in this session. Here we have a class called example, and the variable total is declared within the class, and we have another method in this particular class. So here this total variable have a scope in between the curly braces of this particular class, which means the scope of the total variable in this class is in between these two curly braces. Okay. So here you can see in this first slide, we can see there's a method called scope method, and a variable var2 is declared in this particular method, as you can see. And and as I told you, you learned about method level scope. So here the var2 has a scope in this particular method. We can't access var2 outside of this method. Even if it is in some other part of this particular class, we can't access it because it is declared in this particular method. So we can access it only in between these two curly braces. Okay. Now the same code we are altering somewhat to to get the scope out of this particular method. We are giving another variable which is private, as I told you before, so we can access it anywhere in this particular class, and it is var3, and we are assigning the value of var1 to var3. So basically we will get the scope of this var3 in this entire class. We can access it anywhere in this class, and the same goes to this var2 where it is declared within this method, so we can only access it anywhere in this method, not in the class. Okay. So I hope you guys understood the difference between this method level scope and class level scope. Basically both are same. I mean, in method level scope the variables can be accessed in the method only, whereas in class level scope the variables can be accessed anywhere in that particular class. Okay. So now we look on to some other, I mean, some important thing which you actually have started learning in the previous session. So here, as you can see, this is a class called baby, and we have a variable called servings, and a method is there which has an argument with the same name servings. Okay. So here you see these statements, right? So it's kind of like confusing for us, right? So which servings variable is really is it the argument one, or is it the instant variables of this class? So it's really confusing for us, right? So basically the compiler also has the same confusion while compiling this particular program, and while compiling, the compiler only updates the servings variable in this particular method, which is basically this argument, and the compiler cannot update this particular variable because there's no such information regarding that. All right. But in this particular method, which is poo, there's no arguments, and the servings variable is initiated with zero value, and here the compiler can alter the variable servings, these servings, because there's no such confusions of whatsoever. So in order to clear this confusion, there's actually a keyword called this. That's why I told you, you guys may have used this keyword in the previous sessions as well. So this keyword is used to rectify this situation, this confusing situation. All right. So what is the use of this keyword? It clarifies the scope, which basically means here we don't know which is the scope, what is the scope of the servings variable. So by using this keyword we can clarify that scope as well. also it means my object. So here's an example or a usage of that. We have a class called example, a variable called total equal to 5, and then we have a method called increment. In that, we are using this dot total, which basically means this means my object, the object in this particular class, which is that object total. So the total object, or I mean the total variable in this class is accessed here, and it is added to another number. I hope you understood the point. Okay, I hope you all know this particular operator. There's no confusion regarding that. Now we will look into the usage of this in the previous coding. Okay, so here, as you can see, it is almost the similar one, but we used this keyword in both these situations. So basically what we are doing is we are giving some clues or some informations to the compiler that this servings variable is the instant variable or the variable declared in the class. Okay, so that thereby we can get the desired result what we are looking for. In this, there's no such information regarding that, but by using this keyword we can clarify those confusions and all. So that's basically the usage of this keyword, and it's quite simple, quite easier to understand, because you all know what the meaning of this, and by using this dot servings you all can understand that concept. So yeah, that's the usage of this keyword. Next up, we will look on to packages. Okay, this will be somewhat new to you all. You will be new to this particular word called package. So we will look on to what packages are, what are its uses, and all those things. Okay, so let's move on. So what is packages? Packages means every classes that we code into are belonged to a certain package that we give it. Okay, so each class belongs to a package. Then the next point, classes in the same package serve similar purpose, which means a package can hold more than one class, and these classes can have similar purpose, which basically means they can work on some sort of data and all those things. And also packets are just directories, which means they are just directories, which means they are predefined codes or pre-written codes. Okay, then classes in other packages need to be imported, which means if I want to use a class which in another package, I must use the import keyword to import these classes into my class. So don't get confused by these all these points, because we will be discussing each and every point in the coming slides. Okay, so first of all, we look onto how to define a package while we are coding. So it's basically simple. We use the keyword called package, then the path to that particular package, and then we write the code just as normal. Okay, then we look into how to use the package. As I told you, if you need to use the classes in other package, we have to import it. So that's the point described here. So we need to use the import keyword and then the path to which package we are using. Okay, so we will look on to some examples here. So as you can see, this is a package called parent tools, and we have declared a class called baby food. And at the very same time, we have the same package parent tools, and we have another class called baby. So basically these two classes have some similar functionality. As I told you, classes in the same package serve similar purpose. So these two classes are in the same package and they have similar purposes, right? Baby food and baby, they have some similarities. Yeah, so we look on to how to use these two classes in another package. So as you can see, this is another package called adult, and this is a class called parent. This is another class. So we need, they are using the baby class and baby food class. So we need to import. As I told you before, classes in other packages need to be import. We need to import. How are we importing? We use the import keyword, then the path to that particular package. In this case, we use the package in which the class is located. This is the parent tools package, the parent tools, dot which class are we accessing. So here we are accessing both baby and baby food classes, but you need to be specific regarding which class you are using. So if you are using both, you need to separately declare those import statements. Here we are using baby, and here we are using baby food class. So I hope you all got the point of how to import classes or packages to our program. Okay. Now we look on to the most important question, as usual. What are the importance, or why are we using packages? So just like in the introduction of packages, I told you, they combine similar functionality. As I told you in the previous session, the baby and baby food are in the same package called parent tools, and they have almost the similar functionality, right? Similarly, as you can see in this particular package, library and book are two different classes in a package, and they have almost the similar purpose, right? They are almost related, as you all know, library and books are related, right? So that's one of the importance of packages. Next up, they separate similar names. So you look onto these points. We have shopping.list and packing.list. Basically, both have same name as a class, right? List, but still they have different functionality. One is a shopping list, other is a packing list. So by using packages, we can differentiate between them. So that's one of the importance of using packages. Okay. Now we will look onto some important or some special features of packages or special packages. So all classes see classes in the same package. So there's no need to import, which basically means in, I'm coming back to this particular coding to explain that. So here we have two different classes called baby food and baby in a package called parent tools. So basically they are in the same package. So if we have to use a method in baby food, we don't need to import the baby food class. I mean baby food class, because both are in the same package. So that's basically this particular point means. Okay. Now next up, all classes see classes in java.lang, which is the classes in java.lang package is universal. Any classes can use it. We don't need to import it. So some examples of classes in java.lang package are java.lang.string, java.lang.system, and so on. So these are some special packages in Java. So the number one point is all classes see the classes in the same package. So we don't need to import classes in the same package. Then all classes see classes in java.lang, which basically means we can access it without import in any class. Okay. So next we will look onto the Java API, the overview of Java API. So what is API? Application Programming Interface. So what is Java API? Java API includes library in which pre-written classes that are free to use can be seen. Okay, so in Java API, it basically is a library where pre-written classes can be used, can be seen. Okay, so as I told you, Java includes lots of packages or classes. And what is the use of Java API? We can reuse classes to avoid extra work, which basically means if we need to use a particular class in one program and we need to repeat it again in another class, we don't need to reprogram or rewrite it again and again. We just need to use the help of packages. I hope you understand. And if you go on to this particular link, you can see various packages in Java API, various packages described in Java API. Okay, so you guys can check it out after today's session and get familiarized with various other packages. Okay, next we will look on to some predefined classes in Java. Okay, so before starting off, I will point out some limitations that we have come across in arrays. So you guys may have learned about arrays in the third session, if I'm correct. Yes. So in arrays, as you all know, we need to declare it as in something like this, right? We need to mention the size of that and all, right? So here we are giving 10 as the space. So what if we are creating an array which is bigger than we need? We are creating an array of 10 spaces here. But what if we are using only the 5 spaces? The rest of the 5 spaces is also allocated, which means by compiling or by running this particular code, the compiler will allocate 10 memory space to this particular array. And what if we are only using 5 spaces? The rest of the 5 spaces is wasted, right? So that's one of the limitations of arrays. I mean, we can't. There may be wastage of spaces, memory spaces. Okay. Next up, here in the same program, what if we need to give in 15 different values? We need 15 spaces, but we only have 10 spaces, so we can't expand it. What if the library expands? Which means we can't expand it. What if we need to expand? If we need to expand it to 15, there's no way that we can do that. So this is some limitations of array. So for to rectify or for to clear these limitations, Java has a class called array list. So array list is basically a modifiable list. So array list is also known as dynamic array, which because it is actually an array, but it does not have a fixed size. All right. So internally implemented with arrays, as I told, it's basically an array, but the size is not fixed. So there are lots of features for array list, like we can get or put items by index, which basically means we can add items or we can get the items in certain indexes in array list. Also we can add items, we can delete items, we can also loop over all items. There are several features in array list, so we will look on to each and every one of that in the coming slides. Okay, so we will compare the previous code with how we will implement array list. Here, this is the previous coding. So here we are using array list. So this is how we declare an array list. We give in the keyword array list. Remember that the A and L are capital. Okay. And then in the arrows, in between the arrows, we give in the type which we are using. Here, the type is book. So we give in the book as the type. Then we give in the name of the array list, which one we like. And then similar to any other arrays, we give new array list, then the type, and then the parenthesis. Okay. So here, as you can see, if we need to give in a value to some certain index, we need to use this much coding. But for array list, we just need to use a method. So in array list, there are lots of predefined methods. One of them is add, which basically adds a particular variable to the last index, which basically means if you are starting off in this particular case, we are beginning this particular array. So the variable b will go into the index 0. But if this array list contains 5 elements, then this particular b goes to the sixth index. Okay, I hope you understood the point. So we need this is how we should add elements. We need to use the dot. Books is the name of this array list. So books dot add, and we give in the value. Okay, so here you can see a sample program. Our tutors will more give you more explanation on these programs as well. So I will explain some features or some methods in array list. Okay, so as I told you, we need to import this particular class because it is pre-written in Java. So we use this particular import keyword, then the path to that particular package, which is java.util dot the class, which is this class array list. Okay, then similar to the normal programming, we use the classes and main method and all. So here we are declaring an array list, and its type is string, and we are adding 3 elements. First one is Evan, so Evan goes to the index 0, then Eugene goes to the index 1, Adam goes to the index 2. So next, as you can see, we are outputting something, right? We are outputting a statement, right? Strings dot size of. So size of method is used to know the size of the array list at that particular moment. Okay, so in arrays, if you look onto the size, we need to specify it, but in array list there's no size specified. So if we need to find the size of the array list, we need to use the size of method. So we use the name of the string, I mean name of the array list, and the size of method, and we will be getting the size. in this case, up to now, this is the size of the array list is 3, right? Now next we are looking at get method here. So get method basically gives us the value in that particular index in that particular index. Here the index is 0 given in the parenthesis. We need to give in the value of index at the parenthesis. So here the index is 0, so we will get the value even. In the second sentence statement it is 1, so we will get the value at the first index, which is Eugene. Okay, now we will see another method called set, which basically has two arguments in its parenthesis. One is the index and the other one is the value. So set method actually giving the value to a certain index. We can give any type any index, and we can give the value to that particular index. In this case, we are giving goodbye value to the index 0. Understood? Next up, it is remove method, which basically does the exact meaning of that particular word, which means it removes the value at that particular index. Okay. Now this is simple as it is. It prints out the values at each index, as you all know the for loop. And this is another example for the same above code. This is somewhat simple, and you guys can check it out as well. Okay, now we'll move on to another class, which is sets is actually array list, but it only has one copy of each object. Okay, it only contains one copy of each object, and it does not have any indexes at all. Okay, and the features, just like array list, it can add objects, it can remove objects from the sets, like so and so and so. Okay, so there are two main sets. Okay, so sets basically have separate classes. So we'll talk about two main classes of sets. One is tree set, which basically sort the values before as we key. So it will sort the values in lowest to highest, which means ascending order. Then we have hash set, which is basically unordered in pseudo random order. Okay, now we will look into various methods and all in sets. Okay, so just like in array list, we need to import this particular class because it is pre-written in Java. So we use the import keyword. The package directory is java.util.treeset. Here we are using treeset. That's why we are using java.util.treeset. If you are using hash set, we may need to change it as hash set. So here, similar to array list, we are declaring a tree set. We need to give in the type as well. Here the type is string. Then similar to array list, add method adds the method. Add method adds values to the particular set. Okay. Now we look on to some other important um, method in sets class. So first one is Sizeof, which basically gives the size of the tree set. Then we have first of, which print the first element, and the last of method prints the last element. So this depends on the values that we give in, because in tree set the values are sorted in ascending order, which means lowest to highest depending on the values that we are giving. Okay, so similar to array list, we have another method called remove, which basically removes. But in this case, we don't have indexes in sets, right? Sets do not have any kind of index, so we may need to give in the value which we want to remove. So in this case, if we are removing Eugene, we need to give Eugene in between the parentheses. Okay, so this is the for loop for displaying all the values in tree set. So this is basically tree set, and it's somewhat similar to array list, but tree set does not have an index, and also tree set is sorted, hash set is kind of like unordered. Okay, now we look on to maps. It's another type of class in Java. So maps basically is a maps basically is a class pre-written in Java. It basically holds a pair of objects, a key and a value. So if we look at the key, we can get the value. So they are interrelated. If we get the key, we can get the value. simple as it is. So as I told you before, array list and sets are almost similar, but maps is not similar to them. The maps contain a pair of objects. Okay, so we look into an example here. So address book. Take an example as address book. So address books has name and also email address. So name and email address are actually connected. Name is connected or name is mapped with the email address. So if you give in the name, we can get the email address. So that's the use of maps. So here the name is the key and the email address is the value. So if you give in the key, we can get back the value. Okay. Similar to sets, we have two main maps: tree map, which is sorted just like sets in ascending order, then hash map, which is unordered in pseudo random order. Okay, so we will look into the so just like in array list and sets, this is how we declare hash map. In this case, we are using hash map, and as I told you, it is a pair of objects, so we need to give in the two types actually, the type of key and the type of the value. Here we are using the address, the name and the email address. That's why we are using the two types as list and set. This is how we need to put in values to a map. So as you can see, this is the method we use, which is called put. So we need to give in the key value and the value which we are giving into the map. So this is the method we use for that purpose. Next purpose is size of, similar to sets or similar to array list, okay, which gives in the size of the map. Next up, similar to sets and array list, remove, which basically removes the particular set of objects. In this case, we are giving in the key value only. Okay, you need to understand this is very important. We are only giving in the key value here, the event is a key value, right? But by executing this particular statement, this whole pair of objects would be removed, because by looking into the key we can access the value. So these two will be removed. So bear in mind regarding this. Now we look into the get method, which basically gives in the value. Okay, in this case we are giving in the key value and we will get the output as the value. So here we are giving Eugene in the parenthesis, so we'll get the output as email on a gmail.com. Okay, simple as it is. Now these are the for loops that are used to display various elements or the values in map. Basically, as I told you, map contains a pair of objects. So if you need to print only the key values, this is how you should be using the for loop. As I told you before, this is a similar shortened version of the other for loop that we normally use. So if you want to use that, you can use this, or you can use the normal version as well. And this is the for loop that we need to use in order to print only the values, okay, not the key, only the values. And if you need to print both the key and value together, you may have to use this particular for loop. So basically that's what hash map or map basically is. And I have discussed you about three different predefined classes in Java: maps, sets, and finally array list. And uh, somewhat arrays and list, sets are similar, and maps is a bit different because it holds a pair of objects. So that's basically for today's session. And today we discussed about access specifiers, then we discussed about class level scope, then we discussed about the packages, then we discussed about the Java API, then we give in some examples of some pre-written classes in Java like array list, sets, and maps. So that's basically for today's session. It's somewhat lighter, and I'm repeating that if you guys are having any kind of doubts, you can type in the chat box, and even after the session you can ask in the WhatsApp group. We'll be there to help you. And yeah, you can DM us as well. And also please remember to check our YouTube channel if you want to access the recorded version of every session. We upload every session there, You can check it there. The channel is Project J. As you can see here, this is the YouTube channel. You can go in there and you can see the recorded version of the lectures, and the materials or the PowerPoint that I used just now, you can access it in our website, which basically is project.com. And you remember the keyword or the the name of the website as well, and you can access the materials in the materials section. There would be dates given, and you can access the material on those particular dates. So now we'll move on to the tutorial session as I discussed before. So today, Frankie and Chiong would be handling the tutorial session. So Frankie, you can start your presentation, and guys, we will move on to the tutorial session.
Okay, so thank you, Marshall, and welcome to the tutorial session. I will be one of your tutors for today. Okay, so first, let us start with the access modifiers. So Java is very special because it introduced the access modifiers. So some of the access modifiers are the default one, which is visible within the package, and no modifiers are required. So we don't need to add this default keyword. We just leave it empty, and the compiler will know that the access modifiers is default. And next is the private. So for private, as its name means that the code is only visible to the class only. So we cannot access it outside the class. And then the public. So public means your code is visible to the world. So everyone can access your code. And finally, the protected. So protected, it means that the code will only visible within the package and all the subclasses. So imagine that if there is a sun class and its extends its parent class, so the subclass, the sun, can access the code inside the parent. Okay, let me show you the example. Okay, we take the home Wi-Fi password as an example. So we can see package as a residential area. So for the private, maybe your parents knows the Wi-Fi password and they didn't tell you, so you don't know. And your neighbors will also don't know the Wi-Fi password. So this Wi-Fi password is private, and it is only known by the parents only. Okay, and then we proceed to the next scenario for the protected one. So your parents know the Wi-Fi password, and they also tell you about the password. So you and your parent will know the Wi-Fi password. Okay, but your neighbors doesn't know about it, so they cannot access your home Wi-Fi. Okay, and then for the default one, so the parent knows the Wi-Fi password, and it's the same for you and your neighbors. Okay, so because your parent and your neighbors are living in the same residential area, which is referred to the package. So it basically means that the Wi-Fi password is available within the same package, which is the same residential area. And then finally, the public. So public means that everyone in this world will knows your home Wi-Fi password. So they can steal your Wi-Fi and cause your internet connection to become slow. Okay, so that's all for the access modifiers, and then we will proceed to the some code examples. The first code that we will see is the counter class. So in this counter class, okay, there is a sections for the fields or instant variables. Okay, it's just the variables to store the data for this class. And then after the fields, we will have the methods. Okay, methods is just what this class is capable of doing. Okay, so let me see it one by one. Okay, so for the instant variables, you can see it is an integer, and in front of the variable type, there is no access modifiers being specified. So the compiler will know that by default, these variables will only be accessible within the same package. Okay, it's the same case for the our count instant variables. So its access modifiers is default. Okay, and then we will see the methods. So generally, when we want to create a method, we will type public static void and followed by the method name. But for this case, we doesn't do like this, so we just left it empty. So basically, this method by default will be only accessible within the same package or the same folder. Okay. So let us proceed to the main method. Okay, in this main method, I create two counter objects, counter 1 and counter 2, respectively, using this code, counter 1 equals to new counter. Okay, so what this code does is it creates an object in the memory, and this is the reference to the object. Okay, so this is what happened underneath the hood. So counter 1 and counter 2 are being created, and each of these counter will have my count equals to 0. Okay, in this field. Okay. However, you can see that our count is shared by the two counters. So why would this happen? Because we use this static keyword at here. So what static means that these instant variables can exist only one for all the objects. Okay, do you understand that what I mean? You can see counter 1 and counter 2 share our counts, which is equals to 0. Okay, so let us proceed to the next line. Okay, counter 1 dot increment. So what increment does is it will add 1 to my count, and it also add 1 to our count. So you can see here, my count becomes 1, and our count will also becomes 1. Okay, however, there is no change for the counter to my count. It still remains 0. And then we will call the same method again for counter 1. So you can see here, my count value is increased by 1, and it becomes 2. The same thing happens to our count. It also becomes number 2. Okay. And then we call the increment method for the counter 2 object. So at here, okay, you can see something special happen. So the my count inside the counter2 object will increase by 1, and the same thing happens to our count. So because this our count is shared by both of the counter objects, so its value will also be increased by 1. So this is just what basically static means. So for the static variables or even the static method, so it can only exist one for all the objects. So all the objects will share the same static variables or static method. So because this main method is the entry point of our program, so it can only exist one for all the objects. Or if in your program you have multiple entry point or the main method, then your program will don't know which entry point should it enter. So it can only exist one. Okay, so let us run the code and print out the value. So you can see here, for counter 1, my count is 2 and our count is 3. For counter 2, the my count value is 1 and our count value is same with the counter 1, which is number 3. Okay. So and then we will proceed to the next code, which is credit card.java. So in this credit card class, we will have two instance variables, namely card number and expenses. So this credit card class will have a charge method. So if you buy anything with your credit card, so the expenses will increase by the amount of item you bought. And then we will have another method called get card number. So this get card number method will receive a password as the parameters, okay, and it will compare the password entered by the user with the real password of the user. Okay, so this is just a sequence of characters. Okay, if the password is correct, then it will return the card number of the credit card, or else it will return the string password is incorrect. So you must enter the correct password in order to get the credit card number. So this is just the setters to allow us to set the credit card number by passing in the card number as the parameters. Okay, so this is all for the credit card class. Next, we will proceed to the malicious.java. So in this class, we will perform a malicious method on the credit card. So what this malicious method does is it changes the expenses to 0. Okay, so this just means that you don't need to return the money to the bank because your expenses is 0. Okay, you can just buy things for free. And then this malicious method will also print out the card number of the credit card. Okay, so in the main method, we create a credit card object and we set the credit card number to 12345, and we perform a malicious method on this credit card. So we run this code, and you can see here we successfully get the credit card number without even typing the password. So we already bypassed the password authentication. So this is not a secure method because anyone can get our credit card number easily without even entering the password. So to make this program even better, so inside this credit card class, we add the access modifiers to the instance variables. So we will add private for both the card number and expenses. So we will save it and we return back to the malicious.java. So you can see here, we got a red underline under this expenses. And we can see here, the field credit card dot expenses is not visible. Why it is not visible? Because we already set this instance variables to private. So this card number and expenses, it can only be accessible inside this credit card class only. So you can see here, you can access it, card number, no problem. But if we access the card number outside this credit card class, and then we will get an error. It shows that it is not visible. So now the credit card become more secure. Okay, so we comment out this method first, because we don't need the malicious method anymore, because we cannot perform any malicious method. Okay, so we comment it out. So after we use the access modifiers, we need to get the card number by entering the correct password, which is a secret exclamation point, 3 asterisk or something like that. So we run this Java program, and here we get our credit card number, but it is we get the card number through a more secure method by asking the user to enter the password. So what if I enter an incorrect password? Okay, so like this. We run our program, and here you can see that the password is incorrect. So now we already secure our credit card number by making the instance variables become private. Okay, so next we will proceed to the baby class. So in this class, it contains two methods. So we can feed our babies by specifying the number of servings, and then we can call a put method, okay, to print this out and reset the servings back to 0. So I will create a main method. So inside this main method, I will create a baby object. Okay. And then I will feed the baby. Maybe 10. Okay, number of servings. After that, I will print out the servings here by using baby.servings. So let me run the code. And here you get this. The number of servings is equals to 0. So that's really weird, because what we want to do is we will add this number of servings into these instance variables to keep track of the number of servings of the babies. So the IDE has already tell us the problem. So you can see here, the servings, these 4 servings is highlighted with the same color. So it refers back to the same thing, which is this servings parameters. So what you did is you just add this back, and this value is not updated. So what you can do is, if you have 2 variables with same name, so in order to specify the instance variable, you can use the this keyword. Okay, this dot servings, and then this dot servings. Okay, now you can see the difference. The color of the servings changed to white. and it's the same color with these instance variables. So basically, this keyword allows us to refer to the instance variables of this baby class. So it will not refer to the parameters if the parameters have the same name with the instance variables. Okay. Now let us run the Java code. Okay, and then we successfully printed out the number of servings, which is 10. Okay, so basically we already achieved what we want in this program. So next, we will introduce about the package. So you can see here, inside this package 1, I have two Java class, which is access1 and access2. So inside this access1 class, I got two instance variables, which is hour and minute. Okay, and I already initialized its value. So we just add one more extra line. We use the keyword package followed by the package name, which this class is located. So because access1.java is located inside the package 1, so we just put package 1. Okay, now I will go to access2.java, and here you can see that I got a main method. Okay, so because these instance variables, we does not specify any access modifiers, so it will become default, which it can be accessed within the same class. So I will show you now. I can access it. So basically, I just create the access1 object. After that, I will just print out access1 dot hour. You can see here, the IDE provides us the suggestion, so we just use hour. Okay, and then we run the Java code. So we can easily access the hour, which is 3, stored in access1, although I am in the access2. So if I don't want to expose the value stored in here, so I can make this hour become private. So after I make it private, then I cannot access it anymore, and the compiler will complain about the error, and the field access1.hour is not visible. If I make it public, then it can be accessed inside this access2.java. Now I got another Java class called access3, and it is stored inside the package2. So package1 and package2 is not the same. Okay, you can see here clearly. So I will go to the access3 under this package2, and then I will do the same thing. Access1, I will create the access1 object, and then I want to print out the value of the hour. So because we already made this variable hour become public here, so it can be accessed by everyone, even outside the package. So I run the code. Okay, here I can print it out. Number 3. If I delete this public keyword, it will become default. And if I want to access this variable, the hour outside this package 1, then I cannot access it. I will have an error. Okay. So that's just basically what about the Java access modifiers, okay, which consists of default, private, public, and protected. Okay, so I think that's all from me, and then I will pass it to my friend Xiong Yi for.
Okay, guys. Today will be a fairly short one, but very important. Today we are talking about data structure. So what is data structure? Data structure is how you store your data based on your application. So by using the right data structure, you can reduce the memory and the time complexity. Okay, so um, let me show you the code. Okay, so first data structure that you are going to learn is array. Then, as you all know, array is a fixed size. Then if you want to assign a value into an array, then you basically code this number 0 equals to 0. Okay, so considering that we have unknown number of inputs, so we don't know how many inputs the user wants to give. So this may be something that you all will type using the array. So as you can see from here, string.name equals to string, then we set the value 5. Then after that, we prompt the user and we store it into an input. Then we check whether the input equals to null. So if no, then we will place the input into this array, name array, and then we will increase the index. So after all this are done, then we will print the array name. So while the input is not equals to null, so we are basically checking first whether the input is a null. If not, then we will continue looping. If yes, then they will stop because while loop not equals to null. So let me run this program. So enter name, maybe I have Eugene. Then I have also, so you can see the array here. Then we have Gary. Then we have Adam. Stephanie. Then we have Terry. So what if we want to input more more names in this and store it in this string array? What will you get when you store another input? So let's try. So Frank. So you are getting an error here because we know that the string has a size of 5, but you are sending in the 6 input. So how we are going to deal with this problem? Maybe we can try something like array that acts like array list. Let's try, yeah. So let's comment this out. So what we are going to do to solve this problem is that we declare an old array. Then once an input is passed into the array, then we are actually declare a new array that has the size of n plus 1. Then then we will input the input at the last of the array. So let's see. So maybe Gary. Then we have Terry. As you can see, the size of the array increases. Let's try now. So if you type now, then the input will stop. So this code is quite good, but this system.array copy, which allows you to copy the old array into the new array, is very memory expensive. So we are memory, it actually costs a lot of memory when we want to copy an array into the other array. So what we are going to do is we are going to change it to array list. So let's comment this out. Okay. So array list. We actually have the same structure, which is to prompt the user, then we store. The only difference is here. Instead of this big group of code, we can simplify it by using array, and we use add. Array.add input. So array is actually a dynamic array. So if you want to pass in a value, then you just use num.add 0. So array list allows duplicates. Let's say I have a few names here. I have John again. As you can see from this output, they are actually printing two chunks. In some cases, this is good, but in some other cases, like name list, we don't want to have two same person listed in the list twice. So what we are going to do is we change it to a set. There are two types of set, hash set and tree set. Hash set is relatively faster, and the order is not unordered. And the tree set is slower, but it is an ordered. So let's look at the code. So we have hash set here and we have tree set here. So hash set and tree set, they accept one parameter or one data type into the set. But in maps, it's slightly different. We also have a hash map and tree map here. So map actually accepts two data type into it. So same as set, map actually don't allow duplicates and is much faster than hash set. So let's run the code here. So I have so you can see from here, array lists are printing duplicates of items, but in hash set or tree set or hash map or tree map, we are having one only. Comparing hash set and tree set, you can see tree set follows an alphabetical order that starts with C, then G, then T. While in hash set, we have a random placement. This is similar to hash map and tree map. So tree map is having ordered sequence and hash map is unordered sequence. Okay, so let's try some problems. So this problem is to convert number to the month conversion. So here we are actually using a hash map because we are taking two variables. So 1 we will point it to January, 2 we will point it to February. So when you input 1 or 2 or 3 or so on, it will give you the name. So first we will declare the hash map. So then we'll declare an array to store all the month's name. So like this. So after this, we'll put all the entry into the hash map. In this case, we are using a for loop. So for in this for loop, we are putting all the entries into the hash map. So after that, we will prompt the user input. So scanner class. Then we will get the output from the hash map. So now the program is done. So let's run it. Oh, there's an error here. Oh, okay. Let's say we enter 1, then enter. Oh. So 1 January, then we run it again. So 12, then we are getting December, and let's try another, maybe 7, so July. So there you have it. This is number to month conversion. Okay, that's it for me. Anyone have any question?
All right, guys, and thank you for joining us. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. And do you have any questions from the session? Anything you'd like to ask? And thank you. This was our 7th session, guys, and we're glad to have you in the program. Do you guys have any suggestions? Anything you want us to improve? Anything you feel like it's an issue for you? We'll try our best to make the program more comfortable for you guys. Any issues you guys have? Anything you'd like to discuss? Is everything in the course all right for you guys? Is the pace good? Is the content understandable? We would appreciate it if you guys would be kind enough to express your opinion of the course in the chat box for a few minutes, a few moments, so we can get a good opinion on our course to see if there's anything we could improve for you guys. Thank you. Feel free to express your opinion, anything you'd like to say about the course, and we'll be grateful for it. Before you leave, please give us a note on how you feel about this session, and we'll appreciate it. Thank you. We're thankful, Daniel. Thank you for giving us your note. We're really glad that it's being beneficial for you. We're trying our best to make it as understandable as it is and useful. Also, since you guys have stick with us, the part 2 is coming up. It's going to be a big surprise for you guys. A lot of content, a lot of creativity in it. It's an original part of our session, so we encourage you guys and your friends to stick around for that. You don't want to miss it for the world. We're glad that there's no problem, but if you please, guys, I wish for all of you to express your opinions, either it's positive or negative. You'd be grateful for all of it.